You're about to create the next ball hawk signing in Madden NFL 19. Because with more control on and off the gridiron, you'll define your team's outcome. Because when the lights come on, it's the decisions you made before the snap that determines what happens between the whistles. And what happens between the whistles is how franchises are built. And when you're on the biggest stage, it's about the moment and doing whatever it takes to hoist that trophy. In Madden 19, you make the plays that win you games.
The Fantasy Focus Football Podcast is brought to you by ZipRecruiter. Most job boards overwhelm you with tons of the wrong resumes. Not smart, but ZipRecruiter finds the right people for you and actively invites them to apply. So you get qualified candidates fast. Now that's smart. Try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/06010. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
Fantasy, you're in the 06010. Focus. Fantasy Focus.
Welcome into a Friday edition of the Fantasy Focus Football Podcast. I'm fired up. I'm fired up today. Fired up! Not like fired up like mad, just like fired up excited.
Fired up
in the house. Tell you about them in a little bit.
Fired up like tighten up? Like tighten up?
Tighten up! SportsCenter is showing highlights of a D3 football game, which, I love that. Wesleyan, massive game against Middlebury College tomorrow. Can't wait to be a part of that.
You'll be there?
I'll be there. It's in Middletown. It's an excuse to
go to Middletown.
Yeah.
Will you be tailgating? Will you be tailgating with the lovely Chapin Duke?
Chapin's at a wedding that I can't get. It's too far to go to that wedding.
Right.
But this football game is far more palatable. Like the 20-minute commute versus the 8-hour commute. A little more difficult to pull off the 8-hour commute.
Understood.
So Chapin won't be there.
Who's your date for the game then?
You don't bring dates to games. That's not like necessarily a thing.
Who's her date to the wedding?
Her date to the wedding? I don't know. She's going solo. This is the second
That's
wedding.
what she tells you. All right, interesting.
I was going to say, right.
All right, this is off to a rocky start. We'll see what happens there. Anyway, if you see Field at the game, be sure to bring him a craft beer.
Thank you. I'm not asking for much.
Yep. All right.
So Matthew Barry here, as always. Stefania Bell, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Stefania's got some TV equipment later on today on NFL Live. Make sure you check that out. Thank you to all those that are watching us here live on Twitter. And we're going to get to all the game previews. But quickly, just not to go through the whole game last night. But Matthew, I'm thinking I wear a size 11 shoe. Sometimes 11.5, depends on the make.
Got it.
I will take my favorite team, for those who are unfamiliar, in the NFL is the Redskins. I'll take a pair of Redskins Stance socks. Is that too much to ask for?
That is completely fine. I'm always happy to buy Redskins gear. Yeah, you don't have any socks there.
I have no show socks on today.
You have no show socks. Got it. Understood. Well, I will get you some Stance socks. I owe you that. I'm happy to buy Redskins gear. I thought you were going to ask for something else. What I was looking for here was, a dog toy that's like a bone. You know how the dog toys have those bones?
I do. I think I know where you're going with this.
And we don't have a bone dog toy, but I just wanted to do it, because we're live on air. But I just felt like a dog toy that's like a bone would be helpful for me in describing what the Bengals did to me last night.
Yeah,
specifically
they sure did,
Andy Dalton.
Andy Dalton goes for 4 touchdown passes. One of the best games he's played ever in prime time.
I mean, seriously. So I'm playing Mort in the War Room League, and I'm like, I'm in okay shape here. Andy Dalton is quarterback. It's a 16-team league. I'm like, the odds of Andy Dalton having a good game in prime time against Baltimore, come on. 4 touchdowns in the first half. AJ Green gets through. Anyway, I mean, the whole thing's outrageous, but we will talk about it all on Monday. Congratulations. Joe Flacco, certainly not elite. The Red Rifle wins you that Stance sock bet. So congratulations to you. And once again, even when I'm against Andy Dalton, he dog toys me.
The fact of the matter is that Mort got the better of you. And speaking of the fact of the matter, we had 3 polls yesterday that we're going to quickly acknowledge before we get into game previews.
Let's get through these.
Which is said most on the 06010. Option A is the bottom line is. Option B, the fact of the matter is, with a nice 69% vote. The fact of the matter is our winner.
Yeah.
So you say it a lot.
This comes in as like the least surprising fact of the day. The
bottom line
matters.
The bottom line is this, Stefania. I'm not going to say it more. Yeah. You understand that, audience? There you go. For voting on that, I'm going to say it more. I'm going to say it more. I'm going to make a point of saying it on every single game preview.
I don't think that's possible.
I
actually think if you think about it,
Stefania,
I think if you think about it, it's going to work against you, and I'm going to love it because it's going to negate it. It's like a double negative.
Yeah. The fact of the matter, Stefania, is that you will not be able to stop me. the bottom line is this. I'm going to say it a lot more.
Matthew stole one of my lines at the end of yesterday's show, so I finished yesterday's show by saying peace out. Is that allowed? Yes or no? 51% of you say yes, it is allowed. So
I want to recount there.
Interesting.
Okay.
That is trolling at its finest.
Yeah, that really is. I love the listeners,
unbelievable.
the viewers.
That was
all over the world, not just the country, because we got international love.
Those are Russian bots influencing that vote. I know that for a fact.
Last one here, and this is very important before we get to our game previews. Who do you want to do the live reads? And let's just go from the bottom to the top.
Right.
22% of the vote goes for Stefania, the most eloquent, well-read, educated person on this podcast.
Yeah.
20% of the vote.
They don't like the live reads that are well done. That's this is the way I understand.
There you go,
Matthew checks in next with 34% of the vote, which means with a resounding 44%, the winner is me.
Yeah, well, that's
live
fine.
read. Hey, how about that? I mean, that's like resume stuff. Yeah, people love your live
By all
reads.
means.
Yeah.
You know what?
The live reads are all yours. Tell the advertisers. Go tell them that, Field will be doing the live reads.
Say buns and
Field will be-
Acuras and DraftKings and hymns and...
Yeah, all of them. You know what I'm going to be doing during the live reads? I'm going to be checking my phone. I'm going to be texting.
So
Maybe
basically,
I'll do a little
the
words
things
with
that
friends.
you do during the rest of the show.
Yeah, exactly. Snapchatting.
Game preview.
Time now for our game previews. Let's begin with the most notable injury storyline of the week. It's the Vikings and the Packers. Stefania, every single day people are wondering what's the latest on Aaron Rodgers. And to a degree, I mean, it's sort of slid under the radar, his top wide receiver, Davante Adams. But let's begin with Aaron. What do we know about Rodgers' status?
Mike McCarthy speaking this morning said Aaron Rodgers is feeling better, that he's getting better every day. I still think this is going to come down to a game time decision. The bottom line for the Packers is they want to make sure that he can move well enough to protect himself. That's the number one. And then number two is to be effective. I think he proved he could be effective when injured. We've seen him play through an injury before. I referenced the calf strain that he had a couple of years ago. They had to adjust the way they manage the offense for an Aaron Rodgers that can't scramble as effectively. But I wouldn't be surprised if they said, you know what, one more week and you'll be a lot better, and held him out either. So I don't think you're going to know until Sunday. And then Davante Adams, a shoulder issue that had him out of practice Wednesday, practiced a little bit yesterday and said his shoulder felt great. So he also is considered day to day, but certainly making improvements. I think if he has another good practice today, you'll see Davante Adams.
Matthew, if Aaron Rodgers sits out this game on Sunday, or even if he does play and you're nervous about him, are there a couple quarterbacks that might come to mind to you as particularly favorable matchups that you're saying, all right, hey, I have Aaron Rodgers, but I also have maybe his counterpart in this game, Kirk Cousins, or Jared Goff might be available in my league. How low are you going before you say it's time for me to substitute Aaron Rodgers out of my lineup?
Well, certainly this makes you nervous, right? The fact of the matter is, ding!
Hit the bell. Stefania's got a bell.
There's one.
We found the SP3.
The bottom line is this. On Aaron Rodgers, it makes you nervous going against a Mike Zimmer defense. People forget he got injured last year against the same Vikings defense. Field, does it get somewhere in the back of his head, especially that he's not as mobile as he can to escape defenders? There are guys out there that are available. To me, the person that is available in the most leagues that I think is the most obvious is Tyrod Taylor. So I have him as a top 12 fantasy quarterback. I mean, I think Foles has a good game. Jared Goff, I have them as mid-tier QB2s. Look, Mahomes is out there in a handful of leagues. Garoppolo maybe in a couple of leagues. But honestly, if Aaron Rodgers is starting, you're probably starting him. Tyrod would be the only person I would consider here. Worth noting, however, my bookie and other Vegas smart people sites have taken this game off the board.
Correct.
So you have to wonder, there's legitimate concern that he misses this game. I think there's people out there that feel like, oh, come on, it's Aaron Rodgers, like he's going to make the dramatic, the Willis Reed, he's going to come back and play it. I think there's a real chance, to Stefania's point, that he misses this game.
So if he does play, though, let's operate on the idea that he does play. This Vikings defense is one of the most popular for fantasy football, and we saw another great one last night in Baltimore just get run over by the Bengals. Would you start the Vikings defense if Aaron Rodgers plays?
Yeah, because he's going to be mobile, and I don't know that you want to carry two defenses, especially at this point in the season. And there's a lot of injuries, so you're probably trying to fill a spot somewhere else. Like I would rather pick up T.J. Yeldon, for example, than another defense. I'd roll the dice with the Vikings defense here.
So the running back workload in Green Bay, again, operating under the idea that Aaron Rodgers is going to play, was notable last week. And as you've been making this point, if he does play, you're expecting to see a ton of shotgun snaps just to protect Aaron Rodgers, a 3-yard bubble to prevent him from rushers. How does this backfield split shake out if Aaron Rodgers does play? Because I think if he doesn't play, it probably just means bad things all the way around for the offense.
Correct. Let's go there for 1 second, then I'll answer your running back question. If Rodgers does not play, is there a Packer you're willing to start?
Devontae Adams. And Jamal Williams based off your running back depth.
Yeah, I mean, I think they would go heavy with Jamal Williams if Rodgers were to miss. But Adams would be like a wide receiver 2 for me with Kaiser there under center against the Vikings. You assume probably Xavier Rhodes is on him. I could actually see Randall Cobb doing some damage here. That's one area where I think you can exploit the Vikings a little bit here. In terms of your running back question, I don't have a ton of confidence in Jamal Williams. I think it would be a lot of Jamal Williams because he's who they trust the most in pass protection. He's going to be in the shotgun almost the entire game, and he's not going to be particularly mobile. So Rodgers is going to want the guy that he feels the best to handle the blitz. That's Jamal Williams on the Packers roster at the moment, but he's not somebody I'm starting. I have him as running back 35, Field. You'd have to be pretty far down before you'd feel comfortable starting Jamal Williams against the Vikings.
You answer this question if Rodgers does not play, but if he does play, do we think there can be 3 fantasy relevant wide receivers in Green Bay's offense against a very, very talented Vikings defense? Because I think it's far less I think it's possible that any of Devontae Adams or Randall Cobb or Geronimo Allison could have a productive game. I don't think it's possible that all 3 of them have a productive game.
I think it would be surprising, too. I'm never going to count against Aaron Rodgers. Anytime you say, well, that can't be done, Aaron Rodgers goes out and does it.
Sure.
Right? So if ever there was a guy that could do it, it's Aaron Rodgers, even Aaron Rodgers at less than 100%. Having said that, I mean, neither of you ranked Geronimo Allison. I have him in the 40s.
The back end of my 40s.
40. I mean, so, I do think Randall Cobb is actually the most interesting to me, especially given the Devontae Adams, banged up a little bit here. Remember, when Rodgers returned to action in the second half of last week, 90% of his targeted throws came from the shotgun. 86.4% of Cobb's fantasy points from Rodgers have come when he's in the shotgun.
I am taking the Vikings in this game. They are a half-point underdog. Understanding the line could move based off what happened with Aaron Rodgers. My pick locked in right now, Minnesota Vikings. Matthew, what do you got?
Give me the Vikings.
Yeah.
And wait, we're doing with the line?
Turn your mic on. Hold on just a second. Why don't you go ahead and say that again?
The Vikings are a half-point underdog. I'm still taking the Vikings in this game.
I am taking the Vikings as well.
Stefania?
Same.
Daniel?
Taking the Vikings.
Let's move along to the Chiefs and the Steelers. We begin with Pittsburgh quarterback Ben Roethlisberger, Stefania, because somewhat quietly, because of the Aaron Rodgers injury, Ben Roethlisberger has missed 2 straight days of practice as well.
Yeah, a bruised elbow on his throwing hand. And so it's a little concerning that he's missed practice both these days. Now, we've seen situations before where Ben has missed practice and then been able to play on he's kind of like the veteran Aaron Rodgers. He can miss practice. They know that he knows the offense is not a question here. If he's well enough to go, he will go. Remember the time that he dressed for a game and wasn't expected to play, and then
Landry Jones started, got hurt,
and then Ben was in there. So I still think, we're kind of a little bit in the dark about this because there hasn't been a specific diagnosis, but, and Roethlisberger himself said he didn't expect to be sidelined. That being said, you got to be able to throw effectively. So if there's any issue with that, it's possible Roethlisberger sits this out.
But Matthew, it's also possible he has a massive bounce back game, because if he does play, we know that the wide receivers in Pittsburgh are terrific. And Ben put up plenty of yards against Cleveland. He just put up plenty of interceptions as well. And this feels like one of the best matchups of the week. Kansas City, you know what they're going to be. High octane on offense, but they're going to have to win in shootouts. If Ben plays, you confident in starting him?
100%. I mean, I've Ben Roethlisberger as my QB3. In my 50 facts columns, my 50 facts column.
Yep.
That was on ESPN.com. Of course, I'm a company man. Mentions a couple of facts, which I want to just bring up here very quickly. Since 2014, Ben Roethlisberger averages 23.3 fantasy points per game at home. That leads all quarterbacks minimum 5 starts. Since the start of last season, there have been 5 different instances of a quarterback scoring at least 25 points against the Chiefs. All of them have come away from Arrowhead. Ding. This offseason, obviously, no Marcus Peters, Derek Johnson. We don't expect Eric Berry to play in this game. It is a secondary and a defense that has struggled recently. I mean, think about Phillip Rivers, who last year had just 10.6 points total in 2 games against the Chiefs, just put up 29 points against them in week 1 and actually should have had a much bigger day. My bookie has this as the highest scoring game of the week. I think Roethlisberger and Patrick Mahomes are both top 5 fantasy quarterbacks in this game. I think it's going to be a monster game. 2 bad defenses, 2 great quarterbacks.
Yeah, you just laid it out right there on Patrick Mahomes as well. Ranked inside most people's top 10s. A great start this week, given how vulnerable Pittsburgh can be in the secondary, as we saw. Well, I guess I'm not sure we really saw it last week, but I think a team that has, over the past couple of years, in big moments, been let down by their secondary, also the Chiefs' explosive offense. Final topic here is James Conner, his amazing haircut. We expected an encore, Stefan. He had 36 total touches last week. Any reason to not have him as a top 10 play this weekend?
No, there's a couple of reasons. If there's any issue with Ben Roethlisberger, I think that even increases the chances that you see more of James Conner. And it's the Kansas City defense. I think you've seen that you can run on them. So I like James Conner this week a lot.
Hard not to love James Conner in this game, and perhaps until Le'Veon Bell returns. I will take in this game, and by the way, the line is the Pittsburgh Steelers favored by 5.5 points, which feels like a pretty generous spread. I'll take the Chiefs. How about you, Matthew?
I'm taking the Steelers.
Okay, Stefania?
With the 5.5, I'm going to take the Chiefs.
Yeah, and Daniel, how about you?
I agree. I'm taking the Chiefs.
You agree taking the Chiefs as well. Let's go to the Lions and the 49ers. Stefania's beloved 49ers. And let's begin with another injury update, Stefania, because Marquise Goodwin left last week's game early against the Vikings, and last I heard he had what to me in the layman's version was a Charlie horse, but I'm sure it's more complicated than that.
Well, but it's in the sense that it's a deep bruise, meaning there's a lot of bleeding, and it's serious in that regard. And if you can't loosen it up, if it doesn't clear out enough, he's a speed guy. He's dependent on that. And if he can't do what he needs to do, then he's not going to be able to play. Not practicing as of yet. I think there's a legit chance that Marquise Goodwin doesn't play. And if he does, I'm a little concerned. So I think right now there's reason to be a little nervous about the status of Marquise Goodwin.
Interesting. And good news is that Matthew Stafford, he left last week's game briefly with an injury. He's all fine to play. And LeGarrette Blount's been a full practice participant this week, as far as I know, as well, for the Detroit Lions. But Matthew, let's get to Jimmy Garoppolo, because
before we get there, though, I just want to say something real quickly. To Stefania's point about being nervous about Marquise Goodwin, I think that would mean Darius Slay goes on Pierre Garçon. So that would make me nervous. That would make me lower Pierre Garçon if Marquise Goodwin does not play. I think most people might think, oh, good, more targets for Garçon. I actually think that would actually hurt Garçon.
I think who's interesting is Dante Pettis. Pettis becomes very interesting to me.
Dante Pettis, their second-round pick out of Washington, who was a literally record-setting return man, who also scored a touchdown in Week 1, filling in for Marquise Goodwin, a high-ceiling player they seem to really like. So let's get to the quarterback now then, Matthew. Jimmy Garoppolo struggled last week, but I almost feel like if this was college where we had teams ranked, this would be like if Jimmy Garoppolo caught Alabama in Week 1 as opposed to catching, with all due respect, like Central Michigan or something in Week 1, right?
Who's coming in Week 2.
Sure. So I think there's a chance that Jimmy Garoppolo bounces back, and all of a sudden any of the animosity or any of the anxiety people felt on Sunday evening is quickly gone.
100% agree with you. I mean, I have Jimmy Garoppolo as my number 6 quarterback. I'm by far the highest on all of us. I assume I'm the highest of all of the rankers. But I know I'm the highest of him.
I'm probably going to move him up
among all of us. Look, since Week 8, Lions are allowing the 6th most yards per play, the 4th most passing yards, the 3rd most red zone drives. Jimmy Garoppolo didn't have a great game against the Vikings, but I think with a couple plays here or there, an 80-yard touchdown pass to George Kittle, if he comes down with that, his day looks a lot different. And then, Daniel, you just can't say enough bad things about the Lions defense. When you think about how brutal Detroit's defense was and Matt Patricia's defense, is there a defense in the league worse than the Detroit Lions, Daniel, the team that you've rooted for your entire life, that you're born and raised, that you love more than anything in the world?
Based off what we've seen so far, whatever defense is playing Andy Dalton. Let's get to the other quarterback in this game, Matthew Stafford, who also struggled on Monday night. He threw not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 interceptions against the New York Jets, one of which was returned for a touchdown. So there was some concerns, I would say, a little bit different than Jimmy Garoppolo, who played the Minnesota Vikings. And I don't want to say that Jimmy Garoppolo was new to San Francisco, but still, Matthew Stafford's been around forever in Detroit and has played for Jim Bob Cooter for quite some time. Matthew, do you think that Matthew Stafford is going to bounce back?
I think he's going to bounce back, but I would be lying if I said I wasn't a little bit nervous. He's my QB 13 this week, and normally in this matchup, Matthew Stafford would be a no-brainer top 10 play. We talked about this, I believe, on the Monday show. 6 out of the last 7 years, he's been a top 9 fantasy quarterback. So the track record is certainly there for Matthew Stafford to bounce back, and you just figure that was just one bad game. 5 different quarterbacks scored over 22 fantasy points against the 49ers last season. 4 of them came while playing in San Francisco. You just heard me talk about how I think Jimmy Garoppolo puts up a lot of big points in this game, especially to George Kittle, who is somebody that must be rostered in 100% of leagues. He's going to have a big game and a big year. But because of that, because of the deficiencies on defense, I think Matthew Stafford's going to have to throw a lot. It may not be pretty, but ultimately I think he has a solid, an above average fantasy day here. But I'd be lying if I said I was 100% convinced. This is why he comes in at 13 for me. I'm hedging a little bit. But I'm honest.
You said you'd have to throw a lot, which could mean good things for both Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones Jr. I think people are wondering, though, does it have to be one or the other? Last week, Golden Tate had 7 catches, including a touchdown. But Golladay was the best wide receiver on the field for the Detroit Lions. Is it possible that we're seeing a shift of the tides and that Golladay is the wide receiver, Stefania, and not named Golden Tate you most want to start?
I think so. And I have to adjust my rankings. You know how you were talking yesterday about sometimes you just miss one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just missed one on Kenny Golladay because I actually have him on in a couple of leagues because I think this is the Kenny Golladay we were kind of hoping to see last year. We saw little flashes, but he was banged up through much of last season. He had as many targets as Marvin Jones did in week 1. And I think, to me, we are seeing the emergence of potentially the go-to guy for Stafford, especially because I think he can make big plays.
The 49ers are 5.5-point favorites in this game being played in San Francisco. I will take San Francisco straight up. How about you, Matthew?
What's the line?
5.5 points.
Give me Niners.
You know what? 5.5 is a lot. I think the Lions bounce back. I think they were embarrassed from last week. I don't know that they win this game, but I don't think they get blown out. I'm going to take the Lions to cover here, Secret Squirrel. That's what I'm doing.
I appreciate you as my best friend, Matthew Berry.
You're welcome. What are you doing?
Steal my best friend.
I've got Detroit in my heart, but I've got the Niners in this game.
All righty.
Smart man.
I'm the only
Smart
one.
man.
The Browns and the Saints play in week 2.
Let it be known that after week 1, who was in first place on Pigskin Pick'em? 2 thumbs pointing at this guy.
For
And
what it's
Kyle.
worth.
No one likes a
blah,
bragger.
blah, blah. Kyle
One thumb
Schmeil. It was
pointing at
me.
you, one thumb pointing at Kyle.
Thank
Thumbs
you.
pointing at-
Thank you.
Kyle and I were tied for first, but one of us is America's sweetheart.
One's
Kyle.
the researcher. You got all your picks from him.
Stop.
I like that.
Starfanya.
I like the sound
Don't
of that.
you dare. Don't you dare, Starfanya Bell.
For what it's worth,
Yeah.
the Browns have a better record than the Saints right now. The Browns go down to New Orleans and play.
A tie is better than a loss.
Very quickly on this one, Morris and Breida, I think both are worthy flex plays. I think Morris is a top 20 running back in this game.
Browns go down to New Orleans to play the Saints, so they have a better record than. Going into this game, Stefania, the injury that I'm keeping an eye on is is Ted Ginn, because he was really good for them in week 1.
He
Not
was.
his real
And
name.
when he sat out of practice on
Would you like to
Wednesday.
announce it out loud?
No, you go ahead. You're the announcer. You're the host.
Sure.
What is his? Please call him by his actual name.
Theodore Ginn Jr.
There you go. Correct.
Theodore Ted Ginn Jr.
When he sat out of practice Wednesday with a knee issue, definitely got a little concerned. He was back in practice on Thursday, limited, but I expect if he picks up on Friday, I think you're going to see him in this game.
Good news there, a speedy wide receiver, and I think that he's got a chance to remain as the number 2, Matthew. I don't know that I even expect Cam Meredith to play on Sunday. Ted Ginn, if he plays, I think is in a low-end flex conversation.
I expect a lot of points to be scored in this game as well. I don't disagree with that. I think he's an interesting flyer. Look, I am at 44, so I mean, you'd have to be pretty far down, but I think he's an interesting DFS play. I do like Drew Brees quite a bit here, and I expect them to be able to throw quite a bit. Sean Payton addressed the Cam Meredith saying just like, it's not a health thing. It was just they want to get him up to speed. So even if he's healthy, I agree with you. I think it would be limited snaps. He's not something you could trust for at least the short while here. Ted Ginn's going to be out on the field and be helpful. I like him more as a complement to Drew Brees in this offense, but it would not shock me at all if he catches one deep.
Tyrod Taylor had a pretty miserable week 1 in terms of real football, but he played really well for fantasy football performances. Matthew, this New Orleans defense last year was an eraser from basically week 3 on to opposing quarterbacks, but it got gouged by Ryan Fitzpatrick last week. Is more in store for Tyrod Taylor this weekend?
I believe so. I mean, first off, like I said, I don't think the Saints will have any trouble moving the ball against the Cleveland Browns. So they're going to have to be throwing. Remember New Orleans, allowed a league-high 6.4 yards per carry to quarterbacks in 2017. That's the most rushing yards allowed to a quarterback since 2014, since the
Right.
Chargers way back then. Taylor obviously ripped off 3 different runs of 15 or more yards in week 1. Every other quarterback in the NFL totaled 6. And Tyrod Taylor had 3. He's had at least 8 rushing attempts or a rushing score in 9 of his past 16 games. I think because of his legs, his floor is so high. This last week's game, obviously in the weather, bad weather. Josh Gordon maybe not 100%, didn't have as much of a connection with him. Now on the turf, indoors, I expect a bigger game from Josh Gordon and more passing, better passing, a better game from Tyrod Taylor. I am as a top 12 quarterback this week.
You sort of answered the Josh Gordon question. You expect a larger increase of target share for Josh Gordon. He played 78.6% of the snaps last week and yet had just 1 catch. Now, he did have another one that was called back because of a penalty, and that 1 catch was a nice touchdown grab. I made it clear going into week 1 that I was okay if not playing Josh Gordon and potentially missing out on a reasonable day, and my instinct ended up being okay because he was 50th in wide receiver points. I'm a little bit more confident this week. I've got him at 33 in my wide receiver ranks, but I'm still okay with those that want to see him earn their way back into the lineup. I know others feel like, he's just so much upside, they'll just keep him there. But on the running back, that's where it gets.
He's a flex with upside. Ryan Fitzpatrick completed 8 of 9 deep passes against the Saints. I know a lot of people are talking up Marshawn Lattimore. Look, Mike Evans didn't have a problem with Lattimore there. And while I do think Lattimore is a very, very talented player, I think Josh Gordon is a freak. And Hugh Jackson actually made a point of saying to the media this week about how they need to get Josh Gordon more involved. I expect him to get a lot more targets after a full week of practice connecting with Tyrod.
These Browns running backs are interesting. It's really 2 now. It's Carlos Hyde and it's Duke Johnson. Carlos Hyde actually got quite a bit of work last week. It's just a matter of how many yards and potential touchdown he gets. But can Duke Johnson get more involved in the passing game, Matthew? That one felt like it got away from him. Not that he had anything to do with the play calling, but it felt like it got away from him last weekend, perhaps because of the weather conditions.
It's somewhat. I also think they like Carlos Hyde. Look, he played 45% of their snaps, 38 of 84, 1 reception for 8 yards. I mean, he did get 6 targets, which was nice, not obviously involved in the passing game. I think you could see a little bit more usage this week, but he is a low-end PPR flex for me this week, if anything at all. So I'm not crazy about Duke Johnson. I have a lot of other players higher than him. I need to see it a little bit more because we're still figuring out this backfield a little bit.
I'm with you on that. The line is 8.5 points. It's a big number, but it was even bigger last weekend and the Saints lost. That being said, I'm taking the fighting beignets. Give me the Saints.
Stefania?
Yeah, the Saints in the dome, upset with what happened last week. I'm taking the Saints.
Matthew?
8.5 is a big number.
I'm
crazy,
Saints.
but I'm going with all these road dogs. Give me the Browns, Keith. Give me the Browns, not
Daniel,
cool, Keith.
what do
Do
you
you think
got?
they can cover?
Without question, they can cover.
All right, there you go.
I was going to take the Browns, but then Keith just got real excited about it, and now I feel like I need to take the Saints. No, I'll take the Browns. I'll do it too. I'm
There
taking
you
the Browns.
go. There you go,
Alrighty.
Secret Squirrel, me and you. Wonder Twin Powers. Activate.
Fanya, tell us about DraftKings.
Tells you about week 2. Hey, it's week 2, the football season.
No. What are you doing?
What?
Don't now. Stop. America and the world wants Field Yates to do live reads. You hush.
Forgive me.
You
Forgive me.
absolutely. Let's
I've
give
been
America what they
silenced.
want. Give the people
I've
what they
been
want.
silent. I
And shout out
like
to
give the
Jalen and
people what they
Jacoby.
want.
It's week 2 of the football season, which means a second shot at victory. This weekend, DraftKings has over $2 million in total prizes, and you can play free with your first deposit. With 1 week fantasy at DraftKings, you choose when to play. Draft a new team every week with no season-long commitment. At DraftKings, you are the GM. Just choose your players, stay under the salary cap, and see how your team stacks up against the competition, because nothing makes football Sunday more exciting than when you have a DraftKings lineup on the line. Download the app or go to DraftKings.com now and use code FOCUS to enter a contest for free this weekend with your first deposit and compete for your share of over $2 million in total prizes. That's code FOCUS only at DraftKings, the game inside the game. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details. Moving along with our game previews.
That was magical. I can see why America and the world is so enamored with your live reads. That was magical.
Let's go to Atlanta.
Like, it really brought it to life to me.
Thank you for that, Matthew. Let's go to Atlanta, where the Falcons host the Carolina Panthers, and we begin, Stefania, with a couple of injuries. We know that Greg Olsen is not going to play this weekend, and, the possibility, and Deion Jones not playing as well. He's on IR, but Devontae Freeman's the most notable one in terms of his status for this Sunday.
Right. I think we'll come back when we talk about the Panthers, and I just think Deion Jones being out hurts Atlanta's defense incredibly. But Devontae Freeman, for fantasy owners, this is probably something you're going to have to deal with all year. And the reason I say that, this was his right knee, same knee that he dealt with injury late last season. He had sprains of his MCL and his PCL. The thing about it is PCL, typically it's a non-surgical ligament injury. And the idea is that as you rest it, you hope that you get enough scar to stabilize the knee. But they can be tricky. You can get some residual instability that causes problems from time to time if you step wrong or somebody lands on it wrong. That's what happened to him in last week's game. Now he's not practiced yet this week. Dan Quinn said they should have a better idea late Friday of what his status for Sunday will be. Here's the thing. He could be active Sunday and go out and have a terrific game, and you might see that for a few weeks, and then something could set his knee back again. It's just, to me, going to be something that you're going to have to follow week to week, and a little bit of a question mark throughout the season, potentially.
I think the Falcons are one of the most transparent teams when it comes to injuries in the NFL. You usually get a pretty good feel for the status by Friday.
And thank you, Dan Quinn, for making my life easier.
Well, the reason I mentioned that is I think we're going to have a good idea on Devontae Freeman.
I think you really will. There's not
at
a
some
lot
point
of game
today.
time.
I have Devontae Freeman in the War Room League, and both of you are in the War Room League, so this isn't going to help me at all with you two. But
you want to trade?
Yeah, I'll trade him right now. I want out of the Devontae Freeman business.
Okay.
Hearing Stefania talk like that makes me nervous.
What's the value?
Especially given that it's a deeper league and the depth isn't there. That certainly makes me nervous. I don't have Tevin Coleman in that league. Rex Ryan snaked him from me.
What's the value of Tevin Coleman this weekend if Devontae Freeman doesn't play?
I think he's a top 20 running back, no question about it. There's 3 different games that Tevin Coleman has played without Devontae Freeman. He averages over 19 touches a game, 14.5 fantasy points. Devontae Freeman averaged 14.3 fantasy points last year. Coleman 14.5 in the 3 games that Freeman's missed. I mean, he's basically Devontae Freeman, which is a top 20 fantasy running back with upside for more against these Carolina Panthers.
Here's the harder thing is like, I imagine, so let's say the most likely scenario to me is that Devontae Freeman's active, Tevin Coleman's active, and you don't know what you're going to get out of Devontae Freeman. And what I wonder is if they are intentionally going to up the workload of Tevin Coleman as a means of sort of offloading Devontae Freeman, especially coming off a week where he had a setback.
So even if Devontae Freeman plays, you're still a little bit unsteady about how much of a workload he will see.
If he's active, though, I think you have to start him.
Agreed on that. Matt Ryan, Matthew, did not play well in week 1 of the national stage. However, it's a better matchup, I would contend, against the Carolina Panthers. But how do you feel about Matt Ryan? Is there a circumstance under which you think he's startable? Must start?
2 quarterback league.
Yeah.
An 18 team league. I have him as QB 18.
Right. Yeah.
He did not look good. And, it gets magnified a little bit, obviously, because it's the only game and everyone's watching it.
Sure.
But he looked bad. I mean, forget the fantasy numbers. Yeah. His passes didn't show really didn't have any zip.
Sure.
He missed badly. It's one thing to have a bad fantasy game. It's another thing just from an NFL standpoint. Like, he missed Julio badly. Now, that game was outdoor in Philadelphia. This game's going to be inside in Atlanta. He has traditionally, throughout his career, played better when he is in the dome in Atlanta. But 9 straight games now, if you go back, including the playoffs from last year, 9 straight games without multiple touchdown passes. Like, I don't know that there's a tremendous amount of upside here in Matt Ryan. You're hoping for 250, 2 touchdowns and no picks.
That would be a great starting point after where he was throughout all of last year.
Look, I mean, Andy Dalton threw 4 touchdowns last night, so anything is possible, but in the game of what's most likely to happen, Matt Ryan's on my bench this week until I see it on the field.
It's funny. You just mentioned the impact of Deion Jones' injury. Let's get to the pass catchers for Carolina. We know that Greg Olsen, not going to be out there. But Devin Funchess, Christian McCaffrey, could it be possible that their targets just get really saturated with those injuries on the Atlanta defense?
I absolutely think so. I thought with Keanu Neal out, that was already a problem. But now you've lost Deion Jones to IR for at least 8 weeks. And I think it could really bump up Christian McCaffrey. Deion Jones is a speed guy, and I think where he could make a lot of plays is in potentially stopping Christian McCaffrey. So if you weren't already high on McCaffrey, I think you get higher on him. And then I think Devin Funchess has a better week than he did in week 1 as a result.
Interesting thought there. Devin Funchess, a player that should see plenty of targets for Carolina until Greg Olsen returns. Let's pick this game. I am taking this game is, by the way,
what's the line?
Christian
in Atlanta,
McCaffrey's going to have a monster game in this
minus 5.5 points for Atlanta. It's a big number, and I'm still taking Atlanta at home. Matthew?
With the Panthers.
I'm going to take the Panthers as well.
Daniel?
I was going to do that, Matthew. Why you always got to take my cat
Panther up!
things? I'm taking the Panthers, too.
Panther
Go ahead,
as
you can
well.
do it. Let's see if yours is better.
Meow.
Ooh, that was a
That's not a
cat's
panther.
meow.
That's not a panther.
Twitter poll, whose was better?
Panther's
Colts
like-
Redskins is up next. Let's begin with Marlon Mack. Stefania, it's a confusing backfield in Indianapolis. What do we know about him with that? Is it hamstring or
Yeah,
quad?
it's a hamstring, and it was a mild injury, and I really thought that you were going to see an uptick in his activity this week because it sounded very positive coming out of Indianapolis that the week one holdout was just really because he hadn't got that many reps, and obviously conservative in the first week. You don't want an injury to extend across the course of the season, but he's been limited in practice through this week, and if he's still limited today, I would say here's what you're going to expect. It'll show up as a game time decision. Then you won't have an idea whether he's going to start or not. And if he does, I'm not going to feel that confident given that we had to go all the way to Sunday to see about his status.
Is there,
after several weeks in the preseason of him rehabbing.
is there any Colts running back you'd even touch this weekend, Matthew?
Yeah, Nyheim Hines actually as a flex in a deeper league, I think could be interesting. Remember last week, 5 carries for 19 yards, but 7 catches for 33 yards. So he was usable in a deeper PPR league, as kind of a flex play here. He was targeted on over 32% of his routes in week 1. The Redskins are one of the better teams in the NFL, and I was going to accuse me of being a homer, but the fact of the matter is, the bottom line is this.
I don't
The
think I
truth
said
of
it
the
yet.
matter is, I'm going to start doing the truth of the matter. The truth of the matter is this. The fact of the fact of it, the thing of it is, the heart of the matter, Field Yates.
You made it just under the wire, man. I set an over-under of 11:36 Eastern.
Yeah.
You did it.
And you did it in 35 seconds earlier than we planned.
I just lost a box
and
of
he,
cereal.
and
because
as he had the over, and
I
Daniel
love
had
it.
the under.
I love that
so,
they're taking
just so
board
you know.
bets
Tell me when
behind
I
the
can do
glass
it.
about
degenerates over there.
I'm just so proud I said a good over-under line.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
you did.
very
You really
impressive.
did.
Nice
You
job.
obviously know the subject well.
Just a little
Nice-
bit. I'm sorry,
nice-
as you were.
Yes, thank you very much. So, Field, at any rate, the honest truth is
Thank you.
the Redskins get pressure on a quarterback in a very at a very high rate. We don't think the Colts line is very good, at least I don't. Andrew Luck's average depth of target last week was one of the lowest in the NFL. He was having to get rid of the ball quickly. And so that's one of the reasons why you see somebody like Hines have, 7 catches for 33 yards. So just a lot of dump off passes. So Hines, I think, who's out there in a bunch of leagues, if you're sort of stuck at running back and like in a 12 team or deeper PPR league for a flex, I think Hines has some value this week.
If you're playing daily fantasy, I think Alex Smith is my favorite quarterback option for the week. Matthew, you and I are in agreement on that. And you might be starting him as it is in your season-long league, or perhaps filling in for somebody like Aaron Rodgers if he sits, Tom Brady because you don't like the matchup, things like that. The Colts defense can be had in a major way. And I just say this, the Redskins, I get there's a chance that Arizona is going to be one of the worst teams in football. And so they took care of business. And that was a smooth operation last week. Gives me a lot of confidence they can do it again this Sunday against Indianapolis.
Alex Smith looked very comfortable in Jay Gruden's offense. There's a lot of weapons here, and that offense works when you can run the ball effectively and set up play action. And so, while for fantasy purposes, it's a little disappointing because you've got a bunch of different pass catchers there. But the fact is, I didn't go to matter.
It
No.
was so hard. It was so hard for you. Go ahead.
The fact is,
Yeah.
Carry on.
that there's a lot of talent there for Alex Smith to choose from. Like I said, Adrian Peterson, I think, has a big game here, helping set up play action. Stefan, you just do me a favor real quick and give us an update on Jordan Reed's health.
Jordan Reed, as of right now, is fully healthy.
See, there you go. There you go, America. It's so great to hear that. Could you do that one more time for me, Stefania? Could you just tell me that one more time?
I have Jordan Reed ranked higher than you do because he is fully healthy.
Come on in.
Right
The water's
now,
warm.
Today, this minute, we haven't had practice yet on Friday.
It doesn't matter. Jordan Reed is healthy. You heard it there from Stefania Bell.
Jordan Reed is healthy in this game as a 5.5-point favorite for Washington. I'll take the Redskins straight up. How about you, Matthew?
Hail to the Redskins. Give me the skins.
Stefania.
Redskins are
5.5 point
5.5.
favorite.
Yep.
I'll take the Colts.
Kyle,
Wow.
on behalf of Daniel.
I'll take the Colts for Dot.
Here we go. Moving along to the Patriots and the Jaguars. Probably the most
Peterson's
anticipated
kind of a big game.
Probably the most, I agree. Probably the most anticipated game of the weekend. Very important question. We have some special guests here today. Matthew and Miles. They come from near and far. Matthew comes all the way from Boston and Miles comes all the way from California. So one of them really did get like a long haul to get here.
Right.
Yes.
They are here. Very special occasion. Hello,
Yes.
Matthew. How are you, buddy?
I'm good.
You're good. You're a huge Patriots fan. correct? Oh, he's a big Patriots fan.
Yeah. So here's my question for you. As
I don't think he can hear anything.
He can't hear anything we're saying.
Oh, here
now
we
he
go.
can. Now he can hear us.
Poor thing.
But our staff in the back couldn't get him some headphones.
Yeah,
it's a low run. So how old are you, young man?
I'm 9.
9. When's your birthday?
April 10th.
April
Nice.
10th. All right.
Okay.
So happy early birthday. You got a few months until your 10th. You came wearing a Patriots jersey. Whose jersey is that?
Matthew Slater.
Nice.
A Matthew Slater jersey in the house.
Those are more popular than you might realize from afar.
I
Also proving he's a hardcore fan.
100%.
Give credit where credit is due.
Is Matthew Slater your favorite Patriot, or is there somebody else?
Well, yeah, but I also like, when he was still on the team, I liked Edelman.
Right.
Okay.
He's still on the team.
He's still on the team.
He'll be back.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
still
he's suspended, but he's
Amendola.
coming back.
Oh, and Amendola, too.
Oh, Amendola,
Okay.
right. He's on the Dolphins.
You like the
Gotcha.
quick guys, the quick
Yeah.
Like
the
wide
shifty
receivers.
guys.
Yeah.
The wide receivers.
Exactly.
No love for Gronk, no love for Tom Brady?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I mean, you're putting him on the spot, but he has told you who he prefers.
That's 100%. What grade are you in right now?
I'm in 4th.
Fourth
Okay.
grade.
4th grade. And what's your favorite subject in 4th grade?
History.
Yeah?
History.
Wow.
See?
History.
See, Matthew, so
That's why you and I
couldn't-
connect, because I have a lot of history. I'm very old, you see. So I've experienced a lot of history. Well, welcome to ESPN. It's
Hope
our
you
pleasure to
enjoyed
have
today,
you.
Matthew.
Hope
Thank
you
so
enjoy
much for being a part of this.
being a part of this.
Let's talk about that Patriots and Jaguars game, which I know you're excited to watch, because Tom Brady. Well, actually,
I've heard of
before
him.
we get to that, let's talk about his running backs. Stephania, both Rex Burkhead and Sony Michel remain limited. Let's start there, and then we'll go Patriots, because there happens to be one notable Jaguars injury that we'll get to in a minute as well.
Right. Well, on the Patriots running back side, Sony Michel did not appear in week 1. We know he had the knee issue in the preseason, had a procedure to have some fluid removed, kind of clean out the knee, and now has been getting back into practice, more reps. I think you're going to see Sony Michel this week on the field, so you're going to get your first demonstration of the Sony Michel train in New England. As far as Rex Burkhead goes, remember, he was added to the injury report with a concussion this week. He's obviously made some progress doing some individual drills and whatnot, but this is one of those things where you have hurdles that you have to clear that could go down to game time. So I'm not prepared to declare him ready to play at this point. I think we need to wait and see. And for all we know, this could come down to a game time decision on Sunday. We may not even have the clarity at the end of the day Friday.
I think we might get a little bit of clarity on Saturday afternoon in case the team makes some sort of roster move to beef up their running back
Right,
depth
especially
a
when
little
they
bit.
travel.
Right.
So we'll keep an eye on that.
Watch
But,
that.
Matthew, if Rex Burkhead plays, or if Sony Michel plays, like is it possible that the running back that you want most, no matter what, is James White this weekend?
100%.
Yeah, that's what I think as well.
James White is my number 19 running back. I'm highest on him, I believe, of all the rankers. I know I'm highest on him among the three of us here, although you have him field very close to where I have him.
I got him at
Mine
21,
will
I think.
change based on Burkhead's status.
Fair enough.
Definitely goes up.
Fair enough. I have a 19 regardless of whether Burkhead plays or not, because Burkhead's missed a lot of practice. We don't know how much they trust Sony Michel yet,
Sure.
And whether he'll be active or not. Other than that, I mean, it's Kenyon Barner. I mean, like, who they just
Yeah.
signed a couple of days
Sounds like a
ago.
punt
I mean,
returner
James
to me.
Devlin.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot in that backfield, Yates. So you think about the Jaguars, who have allowed the 8th highest completion percentage when targeting running backs since the start of last season. Patriots, of course, completed the 2nd most passes to running backs last season. James White played a lot of snaps when they played a lot of snaps, I should say, when they played Jacksonville last year in the playoffs.
Right.
I think this is a big James White game. Certainly love him in daily, and I think he's a top 20 running back regardless of the status of Rex Burkhead.
The Tom Brady decision you have to make might be similar to that of Aaron Rodgers, right? It's not just, now Brady's not hurt, but Aaron Rodgers plays a great defense in the Minnesota Vikings. We drop Brady. I mean, he's still inside all of our top 10s. Matthew, I'm a little bit closer. You and I am closer to 10. Stefania has him closer to his normal spot. Don't move mountains to remove Tom Brady from your lineup. If you have a great backup option on your bench, it's fine. And Alex Smith, someone of that nature. But, we're not suggesting that you just throw Tom Brady on the bench to start Matt Ryan or somebody like that. How about Chris Hogan, though, after last week, Matthew? Just one catch for Chris Hogan against the Texans. Now he gets that basically impenetrable Jaguars defense.
Yeah, I mean, so the question, and this is my expectation, I think a lot of people are nervous about A.J. Boye and Jalen Ramsey. Two of, if not the best cornerback duo in the National Football League. But Hogan lines up in the slot. And I think if there's one place you can attack Jacksonville to the extent you can, it's the middle of the field. And knowing Josh McDaniels, knowing Bill Belichick, I think, and Tom Brady, they will move Hogan all over the field to try to get him going this week. Remember, last year, Chris Hogan caught one pass in the first game of week 1 in 2017. He was the third best wide receiver over the next month after that. I'm not saying he's a top 3 wide receiver this week. Obviously, it's still Jacksonville. It's still going to be a tough defense, but I'm not as, oh no, gotta bench him as you might think because of the creativity that I think will be involved and because we know he can play out of the slot. I have him as my number 23 wide receiver. So a low end wide receiver 2, high end wide receiver 3 for me this week. Slightly lower than he would be normally, but I think you still have to put him out there depending on your options.
Stefania, Leonard Fournette, we know the $1 million question is, will he play on Sunday?
Well, I actually think it's a 2-layered question. So first of all, Leonard Fournette not practicing on Friday. That'll be 3 days in a row of not practicing. Coach Doug Marrone said he does not have to practice to play. But, some interesting things. Leonard Fournette telling reporters yesterday that he felt a pop when he hurt his hamstring. This is one of those things where it doesn't. Yes, Matthew.
That sounds bad.
Is a pop good or bad if a player hears that when running?
I would say it is bad.
I knew it. Yeah, I knew it was bad.
Yep. That being said, it doesn't dictate everything about the injury, but it's one of those things that you put in the bucket of things a player says that is not encouraging. Here's the thing. It's going to end up potentially being a game time decision. I believe that even if Fournette plays, you're going to see more work for TJ Yeldon regardless, and there's still the possibility that Fournette does not play.
Matthew, if he does not play, how high does TJ Yeldon rank in your, or how high does he climb in your rankings for this weekend?
I think he'd be a borderline top 20 play for me. We've talked about this. If Fournette does not play, you'd see a lot more Corey Grant than I think you saw last week. It was all Yeldon pretty much once Fournette left the game. I think it would be a 75-25 split, maybe a 65-35 split for Yeldon to Corey Grant. So Corey Grant would have some volume. So I wouldn't have Yeldon as high as I would Fournette. But I would still think he's somebody that needs to be rostered in 100% of leagues. I don't know what his roster percentage is right now. I mean,
lower than that, yeah.
Right. I mean, he's clearly not rostered in all leagues. Because Leonard Fournette is rostered in all leagues, TJ Yeldon needs to be rostered in all leagues. Running in that offense, which is run first, and behind that offensive line, TJ Yeldon would be an easy RB2, even against the Patriots.
All right, this line, the Patriots are favored by 2.5 points. I'm going to pick the Jaguars in this game. Matthew, what do you got?
They're 2.5 point favorites. The Jags?
Patriots are.
The Patriots are 2.5 point favorites. I will take the Jags as well.
Stefania?
Actually, yeah.
I'm going to take the Patriots.
Daniel, what do you got?
I am taking the Patriots. I understand Kyle took the Colts on my behalf just recently. I'm changing that to the Redskins.
Okay, there you go. You're making a change. And finally, Matthew, who will win this game, the Patriots or the Jaguars?
I'm a huge Pats fan, but Jaguars, I think their D is too good.
Wow, that's a curveball.
Very reasoned response.
The Pats barely won last time they played the Jags. I think I've got to go with the Jaguars.
Don't you think Tom Brady's a little upset about that? Remembers that? Wants to change it this time?
Yes.
Well, Jaguars, by the way,
but the Jaguars
should have won. By the way, that Miles Jack touchdown should have counted.
That's a very well thought out response. I'm impressed.
Young Matthew coming to a Sports Center set near you in just a matter of time. Let's get to the Eagles and the Buccaneers.
He might be taking over this chair on Monday. By the way, there's a very good chance.
For that.
I've submitted a ZipRecruiter submission.
Should we put up a poll? 9-year-old Matthew versus
48-year-old Matthew.
40 Matthew.
Yeah,
over 40.
Yeah,
you could have gone up a couple more decades.
Stop it. Come on.
Trying to be nice.
Eagles and Buccaneers.
Thank you, Stefania.
Eagles and Buccaneers. Deshaun Jackson is the injury of note here, Stefania. What do we know about D-Jax's status for week 2?
Not one, but 2 injuries, a concussion and a shoulder injury. Did not practice on Wednesday, bumped up to a limited practice on Thursday. Obviously, a few things that he needs to pass before game time. Hopefully we get some clarity later Friday afternoon, but as of now, still very questionable.
All righty, there you go. Matthew, let's start with this Fitzmagic stuff because he was unbelievable last week. Are you starting him this week after he put up a huge 43-point outing against the Saints?
No.
Yeah, okay. You are not, and I'm not buying it as well, Matthew. We've been tricked before. Not that Fitzmagic isn't a reliable starter for them as a reliable backup for them, but I mean, he's had great games in the past. It is proven to not be predictable over time.
Since 2014, Fitzmagic has 15 different games with at least 16 fantasy points. He's averaging just 11.8 fantasy points per game in his next game. And with all due respect to the Saints, they're not the Eagles defense. I think you could make an argument that the Eagles defense is the best in the NFL. It's certainly in the top 5.
Yeah.
So, and they're not going to be surprised by Fitzmagic. It seemed like the Saints were caught a little bit flat-footed, if you will, in week 1. The Eagles, who have had extra time to prepare, because remember, they played on Thursday night in week number 1. I just don't see Ryan Fitzpatrick having the same kind of success against Philly that he did against New Orleans.
If Deshaun Jackson and Chris Godwin both play, which most of you say if Deshaun Jackson plays, would you feel comfortable starting either of them?
I wouldn't.
Okay. Yeah, if Jackson sits, obviously you feel much more comfortable starting Chris Godwin, who would be in line for a ton of work.
Correct.
On the Eagles side, Nick Foles was pretty ugly, right? I mean, it was pretty ugly in week 1. It was bad.
Yeah.
How much trust do you have in the other players in this offense? Is there anybody you can start with Nick Foles based off how he played last week, Matthew, other than, I guessed, Nelson Aguilar and Zach Ertz?
I love Nelson Aguilar here. He was last year's leader in slot points takes on a defense that last year allowed the 3rd most slot completions. Now, this is a secondary that allows the most has allowed the most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers, I believe, in the last 2 years. It's a brutal secondary that doesn't expect to have Brent Grimes back. They lost Vernon Hargreaves for the season. So think about this. Like, one of the worst secondaries in the NFL has lost 2 of its starters. Like, 2 guys that couldn't beat out Grimes and Hargreaves are going to have to start for him now. I just think it's going to be a real struggle here. Remember, Drew Brees last week, 18 of 21 for 211 yards to the slot and a pair of touchdowns. I think Aguilar, who had double-digit targets last week, we don't expect Alshon Jeffrey to play in this game, Stefania.
Nope.
Of course not. Yeah.
So, yeah, give me all the Nelson Aguilar. I have him as a top 20 play this week.
How about the Eagles running backs? Because there were like 7 of them that played last week. Stefania, do we think Darren Sproles will be good to go? He's been banged up this week. He's been limited in practice quite a bit.
He has a hamstring issue that kept him out on Thursday after he did do a little bit of work on Wednesday. I think we'll see today what he does, but I haven't gotten the sense that there's a hint that he won't play.
Interesting.
But I think Friday will tell us a lot.
Matthew, about this running back split, whether he plays or not, how would you stack them? It's Jay Ajayi 1, and then what?
I guess Corey Clement. It's worth noting if Sproles is active for DFS, my guess is, I haven't looked at the prices on any of the sites yet, but my guess is Darren Sproles could not be particularly expensive. Buccaneers have allowed the 5th most passing yards to opposing running backs since the start of last season. They use Sproles more than people thought. But I have Jay Ajayi as a top 14 fantasy play this week. Doug Peterson came out after that game and said, hey, we limited him a little bit in the first half just to see what we had in him. And then he got going. You're going to see more of him going forward. The Buccaneers are a defense that you can run on as well. They've had some injuries as well on their defensive line. I think Jay Ajayi gets a nice workload here and gets into the end zone.
The Eagles are a 3.5-point favorite. I will take Philadelphia on the road to go 2-0. Matthew?
Yeah, give me the Eagles. Fly, Eagles fly.
Eagles.
I'm taking the Eagles.
I always thought that MeUndies was a really cool underwear brand with fun, crazy prints, but it wasn't until I actually
Hang on for a second, Field. I just want to make sure America's paying attention. Is everyone paying attention? Because Field's doing another live read that you guys love. Here it is, not me, not Stefania. Field's doing a live read, so pay attention to Field talking about his underwear.
I always thought that MeUndies was that really cool underwear brand with the fun, crazy prints, but it wasn't until I actually tried them on that I realized that, holy crap, they are seriously the most comfortable thing I've ever worn. They use a micromodal fabric, which is a full 3 times softer than regular cotton. I couldn't believe how soft these things were. It's the exact fabric you're going to want down there. They release multiple fun prints each month in matching socks and bralettes. You can even get a matching pair for your partner. Chapin might be interested. 100% satisfaction guaranteed. You're going to love these undies, but if you're not into it, just send them back for a full refund. MeUndies just launched a brand new membership. You can level up your top drawer with new undies each month. Members gain access to exclusive prints that no one else can get. They get special member pricing on every product MeUndies makes, and you can switch styles or skip any month that you want. MeUndies has a great offer for our listeners. For any first-time purchasers, when you purchase any MeUndies, you get 15% off and free shipping. This is a no-brainer. Get 15% off a pair of the most comfortable undies you'll ever put on. And to get your 15% off, Well, plus free shipping and 100% satisfaction guarantee. Go to MeUndies.com/FFF. That's MeUndies.com/FFF.
A wedding is a beautiful thing, as long as it doesn't fall on a Saturday during college football season. Those Saturdays are reserved for the union of two rivals, a celebration of fans coming together to trash talk one another. At Buffalo Wild Wings, we believe that a wedding planner needs to own a football calendar, and our bars are full of beer-drinking, wing-eating fans who agree with us. Unless you're secretly trying to cut down your guest list, then kudos on the great strategy. Buffalo Wild Wings, escape to football. Please drink responsibly.
Fantasy, you're in the whole 6010. Focus. Fantasy focus.
Texans and Titans face off in an AFC South matchup. Both teams looking to avoid going 0-2. Stefania, we actually just heard recently from Bill O'Brien about Will Fuller, who seems to be on track to play in Week 2.
Yes, he is. We talked again last week about how teams need to be conservative in Week 1, and Will Fuller had been making progress, but held out of last week's game, and ultimately that gave him another week of recuperation. So the team feeling very good about his availability.
That's a good sign right there. Obviously, they missed him last week, although Deshaun Watson still threw it vertically. Matthew, my question is, will Deshaun Watson bounce back? How confident are you that he needs to be ranked inside the top 10 this week?
The bottom line of the fact of the matter is this.
Nice.
That's an offense, as in it's offensive.
I'm cautiously optimistic on Deshaun Watson. I don't think playing at Gillette against the Patriots will be the same as playing at Tennessee. And having Will Fuller will certainly help out here. Look, I'm just inside my top 10. We all do here. So if you used a early round draft pick on Deshaun Watson, because he was one of the first quarterbacks off the board, I think you have to start him here. Not really worry about it. Remember, Tennessee ranked 27th in Week 1 pressure percentage. I think he's going to have a clean pocket here. And when he has time to let those deep plays develop with Hopkins and Fuller, good things can happen.
My thing is this, we said it yesterday, is that, like, I'm not ready to get nervous on Deshaun Watson.
Right.
But if it's a couple more games, then yeah, I am going to understand that he is different than other quarterbacks we had ranked at the top of our charts, because his sample size was 6 games. Yeah. Like, if Tom Brady struggles for 2 straight, you're saying, like, it's Tom Brady. He's got 19 years of evidence to make you believe he will be better. Stefania, a couple of injury updates. Well, just really
how do you explain me, for example? I mean, we have many years of evidence knowing that I won't get better. Yeah, and yet I'm still here.
It's a miracle.
Resistance to change. Stefania, on Corey Davis, he's been banged up a little bit. Maybe another one that sort of slid under the radar a little bit.
Right, and on the injury report because of his hamstring, which for those who may remember last year missed a lot of time because of a serious hamstring issue, and then dealt with a minor hamstring injury in the preseason. I think this is a lot of caution on the part of Tennessee, and understandably so. Huge talent in Corey Davis, and if you have something that's maybe a little late in there, you're worried that it's going to explode into something bigger. If you're not careful, you control what he does as far as his volume of work in practice with the hope that he'll be able to play on Sunday. So I think this is a management of Corey Davis more than a real threat to his status. I do expect that he will play.
But you combine that, the iffy hamstring injury, with Marcus Mariota, who's also a little bit banged up, Stefania.
Marcus Mariota more than a little banged up. We were talking in the meeting beforehand. Yeah. Remember at the start of the year, the start of the week, I said he had the contusion on his elbow, it affected his grip strength, and so on. That's a big deal. It resulted in 2 turnovers back to back, and they pulled him from the game. If there's any doubt about his ability to function effectively, forget how he plays, his play in general or where you rank him. If his physical ailment is going to compromise his ability to throw the ball where it's supposed to be, he's not going to play.
I have to be honest, Field. I have Corey Davis at 28. I think I'm too high on him.
Yeah, I'm nervous.
I'm nervous on him. I think
last week.
Mariota, until we see it on the field, I mean, we keep talking about all this potential, but we haven't seen it, whether it is injury related, whether it is teammate related, whatever it is. Matt LaFleur, I know, was partially brought in to fix Marcus Mariota, and obviously that's going to take some time, given the fact that he's also dealing with an injury, may not be able to complete the game. Corey Davis isn't 100%. Boy, oh boy, when I do my update later today after all the Friday injury practice report comes out, I'll have Corey Davis much lower than I do right now. I'm nervous about this Titans offense with the exception of one running back.
Deion Lewis, of course, would be the one that you are most confident in. We'll see on this one, though. We got to see how that backfield shakes out a bit more before we start to say that Derrick Henry is no longer a usable piece in that offense.
100%. And by the way, he had a big touchdown run that was called back because of a penalty. You could certainly see it. I'm just, in terms of, it's all about confidence level after what you've seen so far. And to my eyes, to these old eyes, I thought Deion Lewis was by far the better running back on Tennessee in week number 1. Last point here real quickly from me. Neither of you guys seem interested in Jonnu Smith. I actually think he could be sort of interesting, especially in DFS or deeper leagues. There are some leagues, obviously, that have a bonus scoring for tight ends. Texans have allowed the 4th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends since the start of last season, the 2nd most tight end touchdowns. Jonnu Smith is somebody that I know they were very high on, but he was blocked by Delaney Walker. No longer an issue, obviously, in Tennessee.
By the way, DeAndre Hopkins, if people are asking me, worried, limited both days in practice because of a foot issue. I'm not worried. I expect him to play.
Great.
I am taking the Texans in this game. They're a 2.5 point favorite in Tennessee.
Yep, give me the Texans.
I agree. Give me the Texans.
Agreed, taking the Texans.
All right, next game is Monday Night Football right here on ESPN. And the second of our special guests, Miles, is in the house. Miles is a Bears fan who lives near San Francisco. Miles, how you doing today, buddy?
Good.
You came all the way from California to hang out with us?
Yeah.
That's right. We
Is
have
it worth it?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
I appreciate
I
that.
love another Californian in the house.
That's
There
right.
you go. Stefania from the Bay Area. Miles, how old are you?
10.
You're 10. What grade are you in? You in 5th grade?
Mm-hmm.
You're in 5th grade. What's your favorite subject there?
History.
History as
Wow.
well.
Two historians.
There you go.
Yeah.
And you're wearing a Matt Forte jersey. Old school. Was he your favorite player when he played for the Bears?
One of them.
Who might be your favorite player now?
Prince Amukamara.
Really?
Wow.
That's a good pick
Wow.
right there. I like Prince too.
Yeah.
What do you think about the Khalil Mack trade? Are you happy?
Definitely.
He watched some football last week. He
Yeah,
saw
you stayed up,
Khalil
well, I guess
Mack.
you don't stay
That's
up that late
impressive.
when you live in California for an 8:30 game. That's nice, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you a believer in Mitch Trubisky, or are you still holding out judgment on him?
I think they need to rebuild a little bit more, but I think he's going to be their franchise quarterback.
Yeah. There you go.
These answers
These are smart kids.
Yes.
That's
right.
Yeah. My
Hardcore fans.
My kids wouldn't be
dedicated.
answering this. My kids would just be on their phones watching YouTube videos right now. Do you play Fortnite?
No.
Oh, look at that.
look-
Best kid I've ever met.
I
Raised
know.
him right.
Raised them right. Nice
We
job,
love this.
parents. Nice job. All right. Well, do you think the Bears win this game at home against Seattle?
Yes.
There you have it.
All right.
Well, we'll find out in just a couple minutes whether we agree with you. Let's get into this Bears-Seahawks game. From an injury standpoint, Stefania, we do not expect to see Doug Baldwin.
Right. Doug Baldwin's going to be out this week and probably next with that MCL sprain. And we'll be dealing with not only the residual of that, but also the other knee issue he came into camp with. So I have a feeling we're going to be talking about Doug Baldwin a lot.
All right,
throughout the
Matthew.
season.
So amongst the other pass catchers there, I mean, who is it that is worth starting this week?
Give me some Tyler Lockett this week. I have him as wide receiver 26. Over 64% of his routes last week came from the slot. And obviously no Doug Baldwin, so you could see in more of that. Last season, Chicago, a bottom 12 defense when defending the slot in terms of both completion percentage and touchdowns. Think about Randall Cobb last week. All 8 of his targets were from the slot, 133 yards and a touchdown. Now, obviously, a lot of that came from that big 175-yard play, but you can't tell me that Tyler Lockett doesn't have big play ability as well. If there's one place to attack the Bears, I do think it's from the slot. I think they'll try to do different things here. And considering that their other options are Jerron Brown and Brandon Marshall, we'll see if we see some David Moore in this game, but, Will Dissly, I think Tyler Lockett's going to be looked for early and often in a game where I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball effectively.
Yeah, so Chris Carson, I still, though, believe is the unquestioned running back that you want to play in this backfield. Pete Carroll basically said as much this week. Rashad Penny will get more involved as the season goes along, but for this week, we do believe that Carson remains the top Seahawks back. I'm a little bit more bullish on Russell Wilson than either of you because Matthew and Stefania both view him as non-startable against this very good Bears defense.
Look, Bears defense is great, and they've been really great at home. Last year, they allowed the 3rd fewest touchdown passes at home than any team in the NFL, the 8th fewest fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks as well. Russell Wilson, over the last 3 years, almost 5 points fewer on the road than he is at home. He has played, and now he's got to go into Chicago, a defense that's obviously improved with the addition of Khalil Mack, a defense that is going to be not left in so many poor field position issues that they had last year because their offense is better. And Russell Wilson doesn't have Doug Baldwin there, and no Jimmy Graham and no Paul Richardson. He's still learning these guys. I mean, he met Jerron Brown a couple of months ago. So, yeah, I have him as QB 15. His rushing can certainly give him some potential, but I would be lying if I said I was super confident in Russell Wilson on Monday night.
I have Russell Wilson as quarterback 7. I believe Russell Wilson would finish week 2 as a top 11 quarterback.
I say Russell Wilson is not a top 11 quarterback in week 2. Put it on the board!
Put it on the board.
I said top 10.
I know you guys won't allow me to participate, but I'm going to give you my opinion anyway, and I actually side with Matthew on this one.
Well,
Thank you,
wrong,
Stefania.
Trey Burton.
Appreciate that.
Don't freak out about Trey Burton, who had just one catch last week.
Wow. I think that's the first time Field has ever sort of semi-raised his voice.
I think he sort of has.
I'm in shock.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you what,
I'm
once
just
they
going to
start
retreat to my corner where I'm silent.
He's at that age where he's getting a little bit testy.
I'm taking
he's going through the change.
I know.
He's just, you understand his hormones are going crazy, and
The Bears
it is what it is, Stefania. We just have to deal with
favorite. I will take the Bears in this game. Matthew, how about you?
I thought you loved Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I thought you love Russell Wilson.
Not mutually exclusive.
The Bears.
The Bears.
I'm taking the Bears.
Football is back. And SeatGeek is the smartest way. You know what? Did I skip a couple of games for that live read?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, no big deal.
Yeah, there you go.
Sorry.
That's what you get when you choose
See?
field for a live read. You get,
He's
you
so
get early.
excited about doing all the live reads.
He gets premature
Here we go.
live reading.
Moving along, the Raiders
What
and the
happens?
Broncos. Raiders and Broncos. Let's talk about this game, the AFC West showdown. I guess you can call it a showdown. Matthew, 2 things on the Raiders. Can Amari Cooper bounce back, and can Jared Cook keep it rolling?
Let me save you some time. No.
Here's what's crazy. No and yes. I mean, and you know how I feel about Amari Cooper, and you know how I feel about Jared Cook, but that is the game of fantasy football. I have Amari Cooper at wide receiver 27. I do believe he is a buy low, and especially after this game. I think he's going to struggle against Chris Harris, who does go into the slot. So regardless of whether they, move Amari Cooper around or not, I know John Gruden called out Derek Carr and said, we got him open sometimes. We've got to hit him. But I think he's going to struggle. I think he's merely a wide receiver 3 in this particular game. Jared Cook, because of the struggles of the passing game, and the Broncos are a team that has struggled traditionally against tight ends, I do think Jared Cook's a top 12 option this week. Like, they're going to be funneling. Remember, Denver allowed the 4th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. Jared Cook's got a great schedule coming up the next couple of weeks.
Stefania, you picked up Philip Lindsay
so
in the
dirty.
War Room League this week, if I'm not mistaken. How do you envision the workload split between him and Royce Freeman?
I don't really know, if I'm being honest, because I don't know if what we saw week 1 is a sign of things to come, or if what we saw week 1 was a little bit fluky and Philip Lindsay just had a hot hand that day. We mentioned earlier in the week, same number of rushing yards, but Philip Lindsay gets the catch, ends up finding the end zone, and I wanted the insurance of him. I think the only thing we do know is Devontae Booker is the odd man out. I'm a little worried about a backfield split. And what that does in terms of fantasy purposes. I still think Royce Freeman is the number 1. But I have to say it concerns me a little bit in terms of volume.
I'd agree all the way around on that backfield split assessment. The Broncos are 5.5-point favorites in this game, Matt. That's a big number, and yet I'm still taking the Broncos.
Yeah.
They're at home.
Yeah.
They're at home.
Yeah,
and
I'll take the Broncos. Not feel great about it.
Yeah, I'm taking the Broncos, and I feel great about it.
Same.
Interesting.
Dolphins and Jets, AFC East showdown of sorts. Let's begin with no injuries really of note here, Stefania. That's a good sign, right, on the Jets Dolphins front?
There's a lot of guys listed, but there's not anything that's a huge concern.
Well, let's begin with Kenyon Drake then, Matt, because I thought that the workload in week 1 was largely encouraging. Because what I was wary of with Kenyon Drake in week 1 was like a 12-touch workload. I believe it was closer to 18 or 20 for Kenyon Drake. Were you encouraged, discouraged, or neither by how he showed in week 1?
I think it's too hard to say because, I can answer it both ways. Here's what I was encouraged. 14 carries, 3.5 catches in 5 of his last 6 games. He significantly outplayed Frank Gore in terms of snaps and touches. On the other hand, I was discouraged because, by the way, Frank Gore looked great. The ageless one. Frank Gore, I thought looked great. And it's also so tough in a game like that where there were so many weather delays. It was just a weird game. I think we'll get a better sense of how this Dolphins backfield shakes out this weekend against the Jets. I will say for those of you who are hashtag Team Kenyon, the fact that Kalen Ballage was a healthy scratch last week certainly is a point in your favor. I'm still nervous. I still think this is more of a running back by committee. I'm the lowest of him. I'm the lowest on him of the three of us. I have him as merely a flex. I'm nervous until I see it. I think the Jets have a pretty good defense, and I just don't know about the usage. He's my running back 27 as we enter Friday morning.
I will say this. They just lost their guard, Josh Sitton, to injured reserve, and I do think that hurts, especially the run blocking. So I'm a little more nervous about Kenyon Drake as well.
Let's not overthink it anymore. Kenny Stills needs to be in your lineup each and every week. He was tremendous last week, and we saw a ton of high-end upside last season. He was wide receiver 9 from week 6 to 12 in terms of total points. Kenny Stills is a big-time vertical threat. This Jets defense was really good last weekend in the opener against the Lions, but I do believe that Kenny Stills is not just one of those guys that needs one long catch to impact the game. He's the Dolphins wide receiver you most want to roster. In terms of the Jets, Matthew, running back separation at all in New York. We talked about it a bit on Tuesday. Bilal Powell, Isaiah Crowell. Do you think you have to make a decision between the two, or are both usable?
I think both are usable, but both are usable as flexes until one sort of emerges. I don't know that we got any. It was such a weird game on Monday night because the Jets just dominated Detroit. I mean, Daniel, I don't know if you saw it, but what happened was that a 21-year-old quarterback, literally the youngest guy in the NFL, came into Detroit and just blew out the team. I mean, he gifted them a pick 6, and then from that point forward, he just led the Jets on this total domination. Matthew Stafford, your franchise quarterback, I think you guys are paying him $400 million, I believe, a year, something like that. Your franchise quarterback threw 4 picks, and so what happened is the game was just so skewed, and it was just so imbalanced that we didn't get a real sense of what the Jets could do because they just ran all over Detroit.
The air horn that I used
Powell
to
did
have
whatever
is
he
no
wanted.
longer
Isaiah
in the
Crowell
system,
did whatever he
and I don't know how
wanted.
to get him
I'm
to
pretty
stop.
sure they
Can you take his battery
got guys out of
Does he have
the
batteries
stands, and those guys ran for 40 yards on 3 carries. It was literally just did whatever they wanted. It was almost like they were playing a peewee team. Is what happened there. It was just sad to watch. And your home opener, Monday Night Football, a national audience watching for 3/4 of the game, of the game until ESPN had to bail out of it. I mean, that was the. Anyway, I don't know that we have any sense on Bilal Powell or Isaiah Crowell. 23 snaps to 24 snaps. It was a bit of a weird game. I think they're both. I think Crowell's got the better chance of getting in the end zone. I think Powell's probably got more upside in PPR because of his pass catching ability. Even though Crowell's a better pass catcher than he gets credit for, they didn't seem to use him very much in the passing game. It's a committee, but it's a productive committee. I think both are flex plays. I have both inside my top 25.
This game is being played in New York. Jets are a 2.5-point favorite. I'll take the Jets.
JETS, Jets.
Give me the Jets.
I am also taking the Jets.
There you go. Football's back, and SeatGeek is the smartest, easiest way to get tickets to every game all season long. Whether you're searching for a last-minute deal, planning a night out, or need to find the perfect gift, SeatGeek helps you find the best seats at the best prices, fully guaranteed. There's nothing quite like being there in person, and SeatGeek will get you closer to the action for a great value. SeatGeek is designed to make your ticket buying experience easier than ever. By searching multiple ticket sites and grading every ticket based on value, SeatGeek helps you immediately identify the best seats that fit your budget. Plus, every purchase is fully guaranteed, so you can shop for tickets on SeatGeek with confidence. And it doesn't end with sports. SeatGeek has plenty of tickets to concerts, comedy, and theater too. Best of all, our listeners get $20 off their first SeatGeek purchase. Just download the SeatGeek app and enter promo code FFF today. That's promo code FFF for $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. SeatGeek, life's an event. We have the tickets.
Very quickly, Field, I just want to take one moment here where we're talking about tickets and tickets to games. And I just want to give a special shout out to Kirk Cousins and the entire Minnesota Vikings organization. If you didn't get a chance to read my 50 Facts column, I told the story about a young man named Travis Anderson who's going through a battle right now. Anyway, he's a lifelong Minnesota Vikings fan. He lives in Fargo, North Dakota. And when the Vikings and Kirk Cousins specifically heard about what Travis is going through, they immediately wanted to rectify that. So they've asked Travis to come to a Vikings game of his choice with his family as their guest. Kirk wants to meet him as well. And so I just, an unbelievable gesture by them. And I just wanted to just give some credit. Read the story if you haven't had a chance to. I won't spoil it or go on it, but I just want to take a moment just to thank Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings organization.
All right, we got one more game before we have to say goodbye to Twitter. So for the Giants and the Cowboys, Sunday Night Football, and it's a great story that Matthew just told. Can Evan Ingram bounce back for this team after a pretty forgettable week 1?
I think he can. I mean, this is going to be a fairly low scoring game, but I have as tight end 7. This is a team that struggles against the tight end, although they're obviously better when Sean Lee is out there. Evan Ingram, just when you look around at the tight end position, I mean, who else has a better chance at scoring a touchdown? I mean, there's a small handful of people, but not much. I mean, tight ends are really just, you need a touchdown, honestly, after you get past the elite guys. I think talent-wise, he's an elite guy. I think fantasy-wise, he's just below that because of all the other weapons in New York.
Stefania, if you had to pick any Cowboy not named Zeke Elliott to start this weekend, and I gave you 2 options, pick one or don't pick any, which would you choose?
Not picking any.
Yeah, they're just so hard for me to envision.
There's nobody I have confidence in.
You have bailed quickly on your little Dak Prescott.
Well, I know I have like 20 or something. Yeah, I told you I was nervous after my first week. Yeah.
And by the way, Dak Prescott on the injury report yesterday with a groin issue, full practice, but still.
My finger.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Groin injuries are absolutely no joke. I would take the same thing as Stefania there, though. If I had to pick a Cowboy, I guess give me Cole Beasley.
That's who I would pick as well. The Cowboys.
Go ahead. When you wrap this game before we leave Twitter, I got one thing that's just come up.
Cowboys are 2.5-point favorites in this game. I'll take the Giants. Matthew?
Give me the G-Men.
Stefania?
Giants.
All right.
I'm taking the Giants.
There we go. And Stefania, what do you got?
Devontae Freeman not practicing today. D. Orlando Ledbetter of Atlanta Journal-Constitution reporting that he is not expected to play, and saying who the backup to Tevin Coleman will be. Vaughn McClure just retweeting Devontae saying, all that matters is the brotherhood. Sure sounds like he's out.
Keeping things rolling here with the Cardinals and the Rams. Stefania, I've said this on a couple of occasions that injuries have slid under the radar. I think because of the Aaron Rodgers and Leonard Fournette injury, a lot of them have. In particular, David Johnson. What's the status there?
Yeah, it's a little puzzling. Listed on the injury report with a back injury. That's all we've heard. No real details to it. It sounds like it was not the thing that factored into his limitation in the game last week. It sounds like that was just more of a coaching decision. But either way, limited practice Wednesday, Thursday, although there are reports that he was very engaged in drills, including blocking, things that you would think would not be participating in if his back was really bothering him. I still am very eager to see what he does on Friday, but right now, based on what I'm hearing, I'm expecting him to play.
Obviously, if he plays, you have him in your lineup. But Matthew, Larry Fitzgerald, is there any other Cardinal you even consider having in your lineup this weekend?
How about my little Ricky Seals-Jones?
Why is he little? He's like 6'5".
I know, but I feel a fathership to him. I don't know. He's younger than me. Look, I have a soft spot for Ricky Seals-Jones.
My little Adam Vinatieri. He's also younger than you.
Right.
He's only 57, but he's younger than you.
Right. Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. My little George Burns. Yeah. No. So Ricky Seals-Jones, who I have.
My little Johnny Unitas.
Exactly. My little Abe Lincoln.
Burns.
Right.
You really went there.
So anyway, to me, the Rams, because they are so good in the secondary and their corners are so fantastic, it is kind of a tight end funnel defense here. You think about what Jared Cook did to him last week, 9 for 180. Ricky Seals-Jones did run 34 routes last week. He stayed in the pass block just once. He had a 19% target share. You know, Ricky Seals-Jones, who's 6'5", he got an end zone target. Look, he dropped it last week. It was a bad day for the Cardinals' offense all the way around. Let's face it, when you run into a buzzsaw defense like the Redskins, bad things are going to happen. But Ricky Seals-Jones, I think, again, like I am as a tight end 11, so I am just outside starter in a standard league. But if you're searching around for a tight end, which you might be because of the injuries to Greg Olsen and Delaney Walker, I like Ricky Seals-Jones in this matchup with the Rams. I think he has a more productive day. I think the underlying numbers speak to him being more involved in the offense that the box score might have produced.
You know, Stefania, the Rams have 3 good wide receivers. I think on Monday night, though, part of me wondered, not can any of them be good in a given night, but can all 3 of them be good in a given week? That I'm not so sure that's the case. Like, it's just hard to do that.
I think there will be weeks. I think it's going to be tricky to figure out. I actually like the way I've been high on Brandon Cooks, as you guys remember, probably higher than both of you coming into this season. Mm-hmm. I like the fact that I felt like they were looking for him more frequently. There were a couple busted plays that didn't work out last week, but I don't know that you're going to see huge numbers from all three. I think you're going to see all three involved every week, but I think the levels are going to rise and fall depending on what the game plan is and who the opponent is.
Goodbye me. I feel the same way. If I had to pick one for this week, though, like, honestly, it's just really sort of shooting from the hip here, isn't it, Matthew? I mean, here's how I have them ranked.
Okay.
Brandon Cooks, 26. Cooper Kupp, 29. Robert Woods, 31. They're all kind of right
They're
there in
all
that tier
clustered.
of like low-end flex plays depending on your
I have
size.
them in a similar cluster, but I picked my little Cooper Kupp. I have him at 25. I have Cooks at 31, Woods at 33. Woods could have had a bigger day as well. I expect him to get more love this week, but honestly, whenever they've gotten in close, Cooper Kupp gets the red zone looks. He was top 5 in the NFL last year in red zone looks. He scores the touchdown last week. My little Cooper Kupp, of the three of them, I feel like has the weekly best chance at a touchdown, which is why I have him highest.
They are a 12.5 point favorite at home against the Cardinals. I am still taking the Rams for that massive number.
12.5. Woo.
Give me the Rams. And by the way, as long as we're talking about the Rams, do you guys see that video online? I believe it was Bleacher Report that did it. Of Sean McVay.
Yeah.
Sean McVay.
There's been a feature on that before.
He's incredible.
Yeah, he's got great
All
recall.
I know is his recall is
Right.
ridiculous.
So they basically asked him a bunch
I wish
of
I could take whatever he has.
They basically took a bunch of plays throughout his career and it'd be like, okay, fourth quarter, week 7 against Tampa Bay 4 years ago. It's 3rd and 7 from the Tampa Bay 35. And he'd be like, oh yeah, it was a Jordan Reed ISO route. I mean, like, it's unbelievable to watch. Like, he's just a freak of nature.
So
love
your
me,
pick
Coach
was the
McVay.
Rams, correct? You're still going with the Rams?
I'm still going with the Rams.
Stefania?
Ram it!
It's a lot of points, but yeah, I guess the Rams.
I'm taking the Rams.
There we go. Last game of the week is Chargers.
Hang on. I got to remind everyone about ZipRecruiter.
Oh, go ahead.
So it's not really a live read, but I just want to remind everyone that you have a chance to be our fan of the week, to be our smartest fan of the week, I believe. I just have to go to the sheet that tells me all about the smartest fan of the week.
I literally just got in your ear and said, hey, Matthew.
I know, but then Stefania started talking about something, and I don't know. It got all confused. Just anyway, so this is a quick reminder to send in your submission to be our smartest fan of the week at ZipRecruiter.com/fan. This week's question: if you were going to tailgate with one member of the 06010, who would you choose and why? The correct answer is me, because I'm awesome. That is the correct answer. But
that's a pretty poor explanation for it, but the answer is actually me. Let's get to the last game of the week. It's the Chargers and the Bills. This game is being played in Western New York. We start with the Bills, because this one might be simple. Is there any Bill, including LaShawn McCoy, that you would have any confidence in starting Matthew Berry?
No, you probably have to start McCoy because you don't have better options and you're just banking on volume. But no, to say that I have confidence in LaShawn McCoy or any one of the Bills' offense, none whatsoever. In
terms of the ancillary players on the Chargers offense to find it, because you're starting Keenan Allen, you're starting Melvin Gordon. Mike Williams, Antonio Gates is either intriguing enough to have in your lineup.
Yes, I think certainly if you had an injury to your tight end position last week, Antonio Gates, who Phillip Rivers is going to look for around the red zone, I think is an option. And I like Mike Williams. We saw that they involved him last week. And Travis Benjamin not practicing Wednesday or Thursday because of a foot issue. We'll see if he's active for this game, but it certainly might affect his workload. So I do like Mike Williams.
There you have it right there. This game is going to potentially be a high-scoring one by one team and a low-scoring one by the other. It's a 7.5 point line in favor of the Chargers on the road. That's rare to see.
Yep.
And
West Coast traveling east, and yet they get favored by more than a touchdown. But
I'm taking the Chargers in this one. Matthew, how about you?
Bolt up. I'll take the Chargers.
Stefania?
Yep, Chargers.
Go Chargers, go.
Chargers, go. Poll result.
It's New York Times bestselling author Matthew Berry with another self-serving, self-indulgent, all-about-me promo.
If you are looking for last-minute fantasy advice, or you just need alerts because they absolutely crush it on the alerts, the Fantasy Life app, it's 100% free, 4.8 stars in the App Store. Understand why thousands upon thousands of people rely on it. It is a great community. And again, it's a free app. Download it. If you don't like it, just delete it. But I'm telling you, it's worth it just for the alerts. And you can go in there, post a poll, do whatever you need, get last-minute advice. It's a great community. Just go to fantasylifeapp.com or download it from one of the app stores. I'm telling you, it's terrific, and it's free. Get better than free.
Poll results here. Who made the better Panther sound? The options were Daniel, Matthew, or neither deserves to win this poll. And, well, here's the good news. They split their 22% votes. 56% of you said neither deserves to win this poll. No surprise, you guys are both losers. The best Matthew host is 9-year-old Matthew or TMR. 9-year-old Matthew gets 74% of the votes.
3/4 of the vote goes to Matthew. You won.
Look, there you have it. We are back.
I think the only people who voted for TMR were him and his mom.
Yeah, might have been. A reminder, Sunday morning, Fantasy Football Now, ESPN2, 10 a.m. Eastern, Field Yates, Stefania Bell, Tim Hasselbeck, Molly Karam Rose, and myself, along with a ton of different reporters. Mike Clay will stop by as well, so check that out. ESPN2, Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern on Fantasy Football Now, ESPN2.
We are back on Monday. In the meantime, Stefania B87 on Instagram, Stefania_ESPN. On Twitter. He is Matthew Berry, TMR, everywhere except for the Fantasy Life app where he's just Matthew Berry. And I am at Field Yates on Twitter. Follow me there. Also follow me on Instagram. I've got a good picture that's ready to post this weekend. I promise you will enjoy it.
My injury column will come out tomorrow with all of the updates on all these injured guys.
Saturday afternoon, Stefania's Intel. That's the information you need to know. We'll talk to you on Monday.
Peace out!
You're about to create the next ball hawk signing in Madden NFL 19. Because with more control on and off the gridiron, you'll define your team's outcome. Because when the lights come on, it's the decisions you made before the snap that determines what happens between the whistles. And what happens between the whistles is how franchises are built. And when you're on the biggest stage, it's about the moment and doing whatever it takes to hoist that trophy. In Madden 19, you make the plays that win you games.